So today in the chapter Introduction to Graphs, let us look at what are bar graphs, pie chart, histogram and line graph. We will also be seeing what are linear graphs here and what are applications of the graphs that we study throughout. We have a graph here. It shows there is an x-axis and there is y-axis. The performance of the individual initially rose from year 2011 to 12 but then suddenly dipped in 2013 and then again rose in 2014. The data in the graphical form, whether it's a bar graph or a pie chart, helps for analysis, quick analysis, and gives a quick decision making power. So let's look at various graphs that can help us for quick decision making. So let us understand what is a bar graph. So what we see in this graph, the shaded region, are nothing but bars, as the word speaks for itself. Now let's take an example of what is a bar graph, why is it required. A pictorial representation what we saw couple of minutes back, similarly for a bar graph, visually when you see this without even knowing what is the context, you know something is growing from science to arts and arts to commerce. That is the interpretation, that is the visualization that you get once you see this picture. And it's rightly said, picture is 1,000 words. What is the context here? In a college there are 200 students. 40 are science students, 60 are art students and 100 are commerce students. If I were to draw a bar graph, I would say the x-axis would consist of the faculty, which is science, arts and commerce, the faculty, and the y-axis is the number of students, which is 40, 60 and 100. So science has 40, so what I eventually drew 40 here, 60 comes here and 100 comes here. So the science students are 40 in number, the art students are 60 in number and the commerce students are 100 in number. We are able to draw these graphs and we have some understanding from these graphs. Bar graph was one form of representation, pie chart is another form of representation. Pi symbolizes a circle which is shown here in the figure. That circle has a center. Let us call that center as O. That center in turn is divided into various pi and hence the name pie chart. Let us go back to the old example where we said in the college there are 200 students. There are 40 science students, there are 60 art students and there are 100 commerce students. In the pie chart form, how do we represent them? So the bigger part is commerce, which is 100. So this got to be commerce. So this comprises of 100 students. The representation in red happens to be 100 units. So the least one is science. So this part happens to be the science and that is 40, which is green. The blue part happens to be the arts and that happens to be 60, which is blue in color. If we add all of them, does that total to 200? The answer is yes. This is the pie chart representation format. Now, what exactly is a histogram and why is histogram required? It is definitely a bar graph. Now, in this histogram, we have drawn x-axis versus y-axis. X-axis is the age of students and y-axis is the number of students. So, in a class, if there are total 100 students, but the age group of 30 students is between 20 to 25 years. 20 students between 25 to 30 years. And 30 to 35 years, there are 50 students. Now, histogram was developed or discovered or made or found by a person called as Carl Pearson. Why did he find this? The only reason why he found, because on the x-axis if you see the age, it gives you a range between 20 to 25. It doesn't define what is the exact age here. It is a range. And when you have a value which defines in a range there are 30, there could be 10 people with 21 years, there could be 5 with 22 years, there could be 10 other with 23 years of age, we don't know. But in a range, there are 30 students between age 20 to 25. This is where the histogram differentiates as compared to a conventional bar graph. Why? Because it talks about a distribution between a range. How is it distributed? And that's what exactly is a histogram. So for example, let's look at the green graph. The green graph symbolizes the age 20 to 25. What we have done is we have made a bar graph and mapped with the y-axis, and we know that it's got 30 students. Then 30 to 35 we have said 50 students. We are giving a value to a range, and that is what histogram is all about. Let us try to understand what is a line graph. Let's go through this example that should help us to understand what a line graph looks like and why do we need it. Now in this example, the x-axis is months and the y-axis is some spend, and these are months. Now what is this? It's just a hypothetical example. I am saying if you get 80 rupees in the month of January to spend on chocolates, then how do you plot it? You say, okay, in the month of January, the amount is 80 rupees. Okay, I spend 80 rupees. Let me map in the month of Feb, it is 60. Now, if I were to just join these points here, what does it tell? The graph going from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E is nothing but a line graph. Visually, if you did not even know what this example means about, but looking at the line graph, you would definitely understand that from A to C, it's a downward trend. However, from C to E, it's an upward trend. So a graphical picture like line graph or a bar graph, pie chart or a histogram is extremely useful as compared to any tabular data that you see here, which is relatively difficult to interpret. But when that data is put into a graphical form, it becomes easy to interpret, faster and more decisive.